Hi, I wanted to come on tonight just to make a short video. Um, and the title of this video, if I had to title it, would be Coming Back to My Father, God. Because I was in church last Sunday, and sort of right next to me, I saw a man, and he had his baby girl in his hand. And what he did was he sat her down on the carpet, and then he backed away from her, and then he let her crawl the distance to him, and then he just picked her up and sort of held her, and sort of praised her for making it right. And in that moment, what came to me was, this is exactly what my relationship with God feels like right now. This is what it is. It's a journey back to God. And just that little moment, there were so many thoughts that came to me. And I was listening to a talk from Miles Monroe earlier, and I forgot what the name of the video was, but in the video he said, you can't discover you can only discover, no, he says you can't discover what hasn't been created. You can't discover what hasn't been created. And he was talking about how scientists think they're discovering something new, but they're already discovering something that has been created by God already. They're just discovering it now for themselves. And so what came to me, if I'm looking down, is because I had taken just a few notes and I didn't want to forget my thoughts. So I said, coming back to God is like following the North Star, our inner compass, the Holy Spirit. To understand God's original creation is also us in turn understanding our created being through God's original created laws. And it's because what I'm starting to understand more and more is that I wasn't going to begin to understand who I am and this being that God created me to be if I didn't get the mind of my creator and my father, if I didn't start understanding who he is, his character, but then also understanding his laws and principles and getting myself in alignment with those laws and principles in order to understand who he is, but then in turn who he made me to be. So it's sort of, that relationship has to exist, and I never understood that my whole life, because I had been trying to live my life apart from God, and little did I know that He was actually protecting me this whole time. I had no idea. So, um, yeah, and so months and months and months ago, I had made a video called Light Bearer. It was called Light Bearer Underground Railroad, I think, actually, because that day or around that time, I I had went to, I won't go into the whole bit, but I had went to two stores. The first store I had went to, the cashier's name was Freedom. Her name was Freedom. And then the next store I had went to directly after that, my cashier's name was Song, Freedom Song. And I just thought that was the weirdest thing. And so there were some other things I think that had happened. And it all was giving me like Harriet Tubman sort of, you know, freedom in being light. And so I had made that video a long time ago. But today, when I thought back to the little girl crawling back to her father, that journey, it's about following the North Star, that, God's way. And so the North Star, some things I had written down. It says the North Star isn't the brightest, but it's not hard to spot. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it can help you orient yourself and find your way. It's located in the area of True North. In True North, true north symbolizes a fixed position, guidance, stability, direction, and purpose. And I thought to myself, that's exactly what God's character is like. It doesn't change. God doesn't change. His laws and who he is doesn't change. We're the one, as we are flawed, and we think we have it all figured out, and we think we know what's best for us in so many ways, and we think we can live our lives apart from God and ignoring just certain things that need to be in place. And we sort of just create our own way of doing things, our own way of being, and what we feel is best. Once we start operating outside of God's original intention of how he created us to function, is when we oftentimes see the biggest, we have the biggest falls. And so, um, yeah, just a couple of things I have written down. So I said, this is what my relationship with God is like. I'm the little girl coming back to my father. It wasn't until I had been out here in the world and gone through what felt like a little bit of everything that I began to crawl back to him. When nothing else worked, when the relationships didn't fulfill me, after the disappointments, trying to cover up the pain with distractions, even after all the things that do go well and still feeling like something is missing. I didn't realize after each experience I was being forced to my knees to begin my crawl back to God. And that's what it is. It's because I can imagine for that little girl, she probably felt like her dad was such a long way from her. He was so far away from her, from her little bitty self. She thought it was such a probably a long distance for her. But her dad was just sort of there and kind of encouraging her, and you know smiling at her, and getting her to keep it pushing and keep on going. And then when she made it, he was just so happy and he was so proud of her. And so that's exactly what this journey feels like to me. Yeah, and so yeah. And so just really quickly, I had thought about it in terms of like, this is what my experience feels like, because it's like I had to go out here and create this life, and who I thought I should be, what I thought I should have, the relationships that I had no business being in, the type of friendships I entertained, the environments I put myself in, all the things that I had involved myself in, apart from God, not even acknowledging God, not even believing in God at a point, but just out here in the world, just totally apart from my creator, and not really understanding that nothing was going to work or fulfill me until I began to become interested and align myself with God, with his ways, with his laws, with his character, and start to develop his character. Is when I began to see my life change. And actually when I developed just a level of peace I never had before either. But it's been a journey. And the thing is about the journey, it seems so hard. It seems like you'll never be able to do it or make it. But it's not that you understand the clear, you know, every part of it. You might not understand every step of the, as you go along the journey, but it's about just getting on the right path and taking your baby steps on your journey. And that's what it started out to me as, one baby step at a time. Because for me, it wasn't like I woke up one day and I was like, okay, I'm going to become baptized and go to church every Sunday. And my journey didn't start like that. My journey started out as a meltdown and having going through a crisis, a mental crisis, and then it began to things started happening, like things I couldn't even explain, but I started to just have these promptings to do certain things. The first one was to buy a NIV version Bible, something that was easier to read. Then well, actually that wasn't the first thing. The first thing was to start getting rid of relationships and things like that that didn't serve me anymore. That was the first thing. That those promptings I couldn't really ignore. They became so intense. My next baby step was to actually get a Bible that I could understand. I had a King James version, and I couldn't understand any of it. So then I bought an NIV version that was a little easier to digest. My next baby step was I felt so I had become celibate and all these things. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to get baptized. That was my next step. And then I had joined a church community behind that. And then within the church community was another community, a mom's group that I had joined to help and get in connection with other moms who were going through some of the same things and all that. So there were resources and things put into my path as I had got on the journey, but it wouldn't have happened if I had not just taken my first baby step. And no, I don't understand every single piece of it. No, I didn't quite understand right now. I would be on YouTube making videos. I didn't get any of that, but it was about the promptings I was getting as one baby step led to the next. So as I began my crawl back to God, and the promptings are so intense that I cannot ignore them. But it's only as I get myself more in alignment that things are revealed to me. So just yeah, and it's I wrote down this quote because I was walking in my job the other day and there was a quote. The quote said, "You'll never be ready if you wait until you are to get started. Just start and get ready along the way." That's exactly what it's like with everything though. Starting a business, creating YouTube videos, um, getting your life in alignment, um, just to live more upright and righteously. But it's like there has to be an action, whatever small action that is for you. Everybody's baby step is different. Mine, you know, was as it was, but for some it might be, maybe cutting out habits or getting help for an addiction and seeking out resources for that. For some it might be um eliminating some toxic friendships or relationships that don't serve you or maybe never did. So everybody's baby step is different, but with each baby step and the commitment to the process as you go along on your journey, um, things will sort of flow and more things will be revealed to you, and you'll sort of develop the mind of your creator. And as you become more in alignment, you discover more about who God created you to be. But and that's exactly what this process is, and I didn't understand it at the beginning of it. I didn't understand it, but it's starting to become more clear. But it wasn't until I had gotten on the path. So get on the path, get on your journey, because what I've come to understand so clearly, even if I might not have it all figured out, I don't have all the answers, but the answers and things that have been revealed to me up until this point. I'm now 37 years old now, and it's become quite clear to me that I can't live my life apart from God. Um, the money, relationships, material things, none of those things will really fulfill me or sustain me, because they come and go. But God, who He is, His character, um, like the North Star, is a fixed position. It doesn't change. So yeah, and that's your guidance. God is your guidance. His way is the way. So yeah, just get on the path and begin your journey is what I would say. So coming back to my father, just thought I would share. And then also really quickly, it reminded me too of the movie. At the beginning of my journey here, way beginning, at the beginning of like my nervous breakdown, a random movie that I haven't seen in years since I was a little kid came on, Save the Last Dance. And really quickly, I won't go through the whole thing, but one of the revelations I had gotten from the movie was because at the end of the movie, when Julia Stiles, when she had her big audition, um, she had a fallout in her relationship. Her mom had died. She had experienced a lot of grief and loss. She was in a new environment as far as school and things like that. And she was taking on something new in her life and coming back to an old dream she had. But all in all, the person who was there for her was her estranged father. Her father was there for her. Um, and throughout her life, she didn't have her father. But at one of the biggest moments in her life, when she was coming back to herself, her father was there for her. So, and that's exactly what it is. You might have an estranged relationship with God. You might have a distant relationship with God, maybe a surfacey one, very ritualistic. But if you really begin to align yourself with His ways and begin to be more committed to the process, He will reveal more of Himself to you and more of yourself to yourself. So, yeah, and no matter what, at the end of it, when all the relationships fail, when things don't go quite right, when things crumble, God is there. He's fixed. And so, yeah, I just thought I would share that. So, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you in the next video.